Hi, I'm Temple Camises.
And I'm Paulo Francisco Rubalcaba.
Welcome to tonight's presentation of Arts on Air. And in partnership with Higher Ground, we are thrilled to officially start the Higher Ground Festival and premiere Howl.
Howl. Yeah, it's a retelling of Ginsberg poem by American poet Amy.
Allen Ginsberg's Howl.
Yes.
It's a feminist portrayal of it, and we are excited for Zara
Lawler.
It's the beauty of live performance. Ashley Carter and Vanessa Martínez de Baños.
Martínez de Baños, co-founding directors of DoubleTake Dance.
So, a little bit about the organizations before we start. We got this nailed down. I'll do Arts on Air, you do Higher Ground.
I will.
Arts on Air is created to bring live performance back to New York City-based artists and their audience, as well as all of you from all over the world tuning in. Thank you. We have been working, this is our 11th presentation in a very short amount of time. And take it over to you. Oh, wait, and co-founding partner of Arts on Air is my love, Derek Rotzenbeck.
Thank you. The Higher Ground Festival is created to bring the artists of Upper Manhattan together to collaborate and create close to home. This is our 5th year, and we usually produce in a public space, free to the general public at large. And this year, because of our health situation, health crisis, we have taken the festival virtual. So this is our inaugural virtual performance, and thank you very much for being here.
And now we give you
Howl.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by wedding planners, dieting, in shapewear, dragging themselves in cute outfits through the freezer section for the semi-Freddo bender. Blessed, innovative, cloister girl pinups, burning to know the rabbi of electricity, in poverty, obedience, in the dream stick of opium and the green Wi-Fi fuse, who marveling and cramping and wired and allergic lock themselves out of their apartments in the trenchant, imperfect delight of early day, who bared their minds to bar friends by the train in twilight and saw tiny figures like fireflies splendoring apartments, Botoxed, flat like canvas, who passed through universities with sensual indulgence addicts devoted to the indefinite space of maps and science labs while the committees shifted paperwork, who left the university from a numbing homesickness for the res and the old alcoholic lover, family, father, temper, crack, methamphetamine, birdsong, who took Molly and mint and Motrin and methaqualone naked in the unhappy light of Saved by the Bell on the hotel flat screen, with spring of 1924 beautiful, imaginary wheat-stock wanderlust nylons travel hope, not allowed to explore alleys or ride the rails or hitchhike either because of the magnetic pink. And with all the years of training spread out boundless, the rules and safety tiresome before them, who listened wandering nylon suffering, while the word of engagements and new babies began its bone descent by mother's phrasing and martini lunch date with the old school of the hot comb and the inner ear. Who broke up with boyfriends and walked tap heels on streets for dentist appointment, a doctor's appointment, an interview, newspaper, grocery, dinner, tomato. Who saw her clothing was available in size 00, so it was time to disappear entirely. Who took a job selling print invitations to promoters where the desk was dusty with coke. Aunt Mary, Aunt Nora, Aunt Hazel, and also dust. Who took the cab to the Upper West Side to deliver the express mail package of rocks and rocks of powder for the boss in his high-ceilinged, mirrored walls, comatose blonde sylph, and suits of bright licorice acrylic fibers. Who watched the mistress, arrayed in pelts, panther drunk and ringed with minerals, achieving her highest human form. Who considered the elevator speculum dilating her. Cataract, radioscope, telescope, manifestation. Who listened to the Today Show while she kindled exasperated on an exercise bike in the new pink. Manhattan Island, 22.7 square miles of dawn. Who carried her infant in a baby sling she designed herself out of thrift store fabrics. Who wept because cesarean was a term for last resort, having felt cheated by the dictionary of the pain of real meaning and deliverance of child into atmosphere. Who anyway flamed ardent and breathless in illuminated swinging, as she sang, lulling smooth, neurons already waddling inside the baby girl's palimpsest brain. Who philosophized in the meadow flowers on her back, to the sound of black flies stirring the leaves, and let herself be touched by the rude one so she could see the show without paying, and lost that beautiful little gold earring. She'd never see the likes of it again. Who from curiosity and an old curse tried the spinning wheel in the coldest room of the castle and spilled drops of blood on the snow and fell into a sleep that would last 100 years until what else? A boy kisses her. Who lost her virginity to the 3 bad playing cards in cardboard plastic-coated false love. The slippery, wet jack of text messages, the forcible jack of all fours, the odd can opener of need, filled by the one-eyed jack who finally demystifies, though it turns out not only slightly painful, but truly unpleasant, followed by all the new information. Who tired of Sheila and the Upper East Side, waiting for revolution among porcelain, and jumped out the window to mainline all 7 stories, literally broke the window. She wanted out that much. Who rode the welfare road trip of pouring innumerable thermoses of coffee and feeling the freedom wind in your hair, of wrapping sandwiches in wax paper. Who worked stable and domestic and artful and innovative and sacrificed nothing, fig trees excitedly, massively blossoming, not that one that disappointed Jesus for not ripening. Who star-spangled lost in her house bound Eden, cursed with orchards, and a million gossipy daffodils, writing and nursing and not on the lists, as he dipped a pen quite elsewhere repeatedly, crying, purring, the distance open-mouthed. Who burned her novel. This actually happened. Destroyed a second bell jar dedicated to him. Call her impossible, but the leap from it must have been split-second, maddening, rapturous. Who blew him 3 times, and then his friend, because it was hard to say no. When you say no, nobody likes you as much as when you say yes, or even whatever. You are loved into momentary relevance, existence. Who begged $20 from each friend to pay for a secret abortion. Her man needing the child, but not her, to show his father manliness by imperialism of the womb and eventual abandonment like any suburban mall. Who should have been on the road, but for the uterus repeatedly renewing its lease. Convincing energy affirmative. Right, honey? That's right, honey. Right there. Who lived the biography, filled, however, with biographies of the others for which she made a home. Flashbulbed in silver their likenesses, and tried love in living room, attic, slanted, redeemable love, their fingers articulated like saints. Who after the understandable and recognizable desire love shape would then expand against his will, and this was a shame, this lie, abandonment, anger, congenital analgesia against hope, plan, bug out for 10 years. With a still, restrained, almost annoyed sigh, what voice? In what wilderness? Minutest cricket, most unworthy flower, I will never be tired. I will never be noisy. I will be your best little girl. Nobody else will see me but you, but that is enough. Limitlessness, wilt thou say? Ah, ladies, good night, good night. Good night, ladies, and who therefore know the biology of the soft matter and the cluster of creation in its salty, stellar, lonely archive is matched by the sweet violence of thought. The mad girl and the saint unrecognized, and writing madrigal in bedroom and recipe in library and songs during class and sketching sunflowers for what's left of us and remains magnified, sanctified. We should be allowed world and dense and impossibly real, multiplying in fields, an abundance of sunflowers' serious beauty, with blooming, ridiculous with blooming, arriving and opening in endless profusion forever.
Please join us for a Q&A session with our lovely artist.
Yeah, here, hold on to this for a second.
Great. So we will be joined shortly by creators of this piece, collaborating artists Zara Lawler, Ashley Carter, and Vanessa Martínez de Baños. And we'll be talking about this process. So yes, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please just write them down and we'll read them out.
We're getting tons of applauses.
Well, great.
Yay! Well, I think Pablo has started with some questions of his own once we get the performers back here and in their cozy.
Yes, and please just write in whatever questions or commentaries you might have.
We're going to just up here with come on
Yes,
up.
just coming up.
It's your stage.
So actually, I'd love to know, first of all, what is it that drew you to this particular poem?
Ooh, I actually think that might be a question for Ashley and Vanessa. They were the ones who brought the poem to me.
Oh, great.
And they need to blow their noses.
So please come on in.
Hi.
So I'll just repeat the question.
Yes,
What was it that brought you to creating this piece, to this particular piece of literature?
We had the idea of the piece, and then we just went through a whole bunch of poems, and Ashley brought this one up, and out of all of them, I think we all agreed that that was the winner.
Yeah, we had started to think about this concept, and I knew of the poem, but I wasn't intimately familiar with it. And then as I was reading through it, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It has so many layers to it, and even in the process, I think all three of us would agree that every time she performs this, we hear more and we hear different, and we find another layer and another way. It's wonderful how it's slightly different every time, and it kind of like builds nuance into it, and for us as well, and how to create movement that goes along with it.
I would love to say something. I want to take this opportunity to thank her. I think she's done a beautiful job. The way she's reading the poem, I love it every day a little bit more, and it's thanks to the way you're performing it. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I mean, while we're thanking people, can I thank you guys for asking me to do this, because it's been so fun. And I think actually what's interesting about this poem as a piece for dance is that the rhythm of it is not predictable. It's not the same. It's not like it's just ye old iambic pentameter that kind of follows a pattern. And so I think it's been really interesting to work out a rhythm that works for the meaning of the words as well as for the movement.
Yeah, I just kind of continue what Vanessa said, and that's part of like the genius in the way that you've been performing it, is that you find ways that I'm not a spoken word performer. That's not at the top of my list. But there's ways that I would think to say it, and then you find a different way that's so much more interesting. And so where I can come in, what I do is movement, and find a way to match that cadence and that melody and that where you're choosing to put inflection or emphasis or softness or sarcasm or song, and it's been super fun.
You know what was really fun about that is that a lot of times she would say a phrase a certain way, and we were like, no, we would love if you pause right here in the middle, because I want to hold this line longer. And she would be like, yeah, but that we were like, can you try, please? So she was great in that sense to work with, very flexible, and made our work much easier.
Actually, for those of you that might not be familiar with what the Higher Ground Festival does, is we actually bring artists of many, many different disciplines together, and we put them into a series of meet and greets in which they converse and they create these collaborations, and they choose and they talk about what they're doing with each other. So now that you said they chose you, that might be something that's unclear.
I was chosen.
So this is something, because Zara is traditionally a flautist. Yeah. So what was the process through which you decided to go vocal on this?
Well, as Temple said yesterday, I lied on my resume. But actually, what attracted me to the Higher Ground Festival 2 years ago in the first place is that all of my work is interdisciplinary. So I often combine spoken word with music, or theater and dance with music, and usually it's me sort of doing all of the above all at once, all by myself. And I just thought it sounded like I should come and check out what you guys were doing, and I actually feel like this was like a real Higher Ground success story, that this is exactly what you are trying to do. You bring together, they host these meet and greets a few pre-season, like before the final proposals are even made, so people get a chance to meet each other sometimes more than once and really talk over what's interesting and what skills they bring to the table. And Ashley and Vanessa had this idea to do a dance piece to a spoken word thing, and I think I was the only person who even had listed spoken word
You
that
did.
year. So
Well, what's
I got the
interesting-
job.
But this actually ended up working out better because originally we were trying to find someone who also wrote their own material and could write something that was
Oh,
specific
thank
to
God
this.
I didn't have to also write the poem.
Thank God you didn't lie about that.
I know.
But then as it turned out, like that skill set does not always necessarily lend itself well to collaborating with dance and choreography and integrating that kind of thing. And we didn't know at the time that like integrated performance was sort of like your thing. And so it ended up working out, I think, better than if we had found someone who would write their own material, because I think it would be very rare to find someone who did that and then also does integrated performance. And you know, I think you're going to get into a little bit later like how this has maybe evolved and what our original thoughts were, but in terms of the way things ended up and the way we were able to put this together given the pandemic, we really couldn't have had a better collaborator.
Actually,
That
we
segues into a question.
have a question.
From Emily Chamberlain. What did the creative take it away. What did the creative process look like navigating creating this piece through quarantine?
It's a perfect segue. Please.
Do you want to?
Sure. For Ashley and myself, it wasn't that different than usual because we normally, except for that we didn't have dance studios, but we normally come up with most of the work outside rehearsal just to save money and be more productive. And then we go into the rehearsal with our dancers, our collaborators, and then throw everything out there. So the working outside was easy for us because that's just like we would meet all the time anyway. So that was the easy part. Then we had to be able to rehearse outside and bring her in. So, you know, parks are awesome in the city. It was summer, warm and sunny, right? So yeah, we spent a lot of time just outside rehearsing in a park, which had a lot of, you know, ups and downs. It was beautiful because of the weather, but obviously the floor is not the best floor for a dance performance.
And we had a Zoom rehearsal on a rainy day that we had set our schedules, and so that changed. But another big kind of like content change was this was supposed to be a group. We were always going to have, we had always talked about her being integrated into movement and the space, but this was supposed to be like 5 or 6 dancers from our company doing a piece. And so in that sense, like it drastic, and you know, as wonderful as it is to have this space, it's not a dance floor, and it's not the size of the stage that you guys usually have. And so we really had to scale back and make it more of a performative gestural trio than this big group piece with lots of dancers and technical work and, you know, those kinds of things. And so that in terms of like content was a big shift for us, even if the actual creative process in terms of doing work ahead of time and then coming in, that's kind of how we approach a lot of our projects. But that was I think the biggest change for us in terms of the rehearsing in a park and the structure of the piece.
And the not knowing if the dimensions, how, like, because one thing is to know it, but you know, this is not a stage, so you're like, how is it going to be like this way or that way, and not knowing the floor, what it will feel like. Now we were so lucky, thank you guys, because we got Marley and it was amazing, but we didn't know that at the beginning, so that was also part of, can we go to the floor? Is the floor going to be too hard? Is it not? Can we jump? Is that going to hurt us? All that kind of stuff. I want to say hi to our company members, Melody, Parker, Ciara, and Maggie. We miss you.
I have one more question.
We have another question.
I have from Ain Zimmerman. Question: why or how did you decide to do this as a duet of dancers rather than a solo dancer? I know you kind of answered why you didn't do it as a group, but why a duet and not a solo?
That's a great question. I actually did throw that idea out there, and I was like, Ashley, I just called you Sally. I don't even know a single Sally. FYI, I don't know what that was. But I did put that out there, and I was like, should we just do a solo and be like Ashley on stage, and I'll stay outside? And then we kind of dismissed it because we don't usually like to do duets. So I think we also wanted to put thinking that this was going to become a group piece eventually, with that in mind, and also for us the challenge of of creating another duet, which we usually don't want to.
Well, and another component of that, and I'm not sure if you also feel this, we talked about this a few days ago, is we didn't want it to feel like one person's story. This is kind of, it needs to be this universal, like, this is everyone's story at some point, right? Because you were talking about how this felt really personal to you.
Yeah.
But your life is very different from mine. It also feels personal for me, and it's personal for so many people, you know, a lot of women, but also men, I think, but for very different reasons. We wanted that universality of it, and to have one dancer on stage, even if then it's a duet because there's a dancer and spoken word, it just feels like it's about that person, instead of, our idea for the group piece was there's any number of us at any given time who's experiencing all of these things.
Well, I like to say that the piece actually feels like a trio, because there's so much spatial interaction of you, Sarah, with the duet, and it seems that you created that. There's definitely patterns of triology in the space.
Yes, definitely. We wanted that, and I think, you know, in a bigger group piece, the goal would have been to have even more of that. And so, you know, there's always, hopefully,
There's always a possibility for more.
there's always a future to work. It doesn't stagnate. It evolves, hopefully.
Well, I actually wanted to say a little thing about the process that was really interesting for me, watching Ashley and Vanessa work in this way that was like, they didn't know exactly what the performance space was going to be like. And they were rehearsing in a place that they knew for sure wasn't like the performance space. And so there was like this little openness to everything. Like, well, we'll plan on this, but it might have to change. We'll do this, but it might have to change. You'll be upstage of us, but maybe you'll be downstage of us. And I actually, you know, it was a really nice quality to leaving, to, you know, we had this like hard deadline, but at the same time to have this openness throughout the whole process, I think was a really nice, I think it allowed it to really develop as fully, I think, as it could have in the time.
And it made us recognize, our company has been around for 11 years, and she's clearly a very experienced performer, and so that kind of experience and maturity to the process, like, that was very much a relief that we could say that, or she could say that, and it was like, well, yeah, of course, and there wasn't this panic of like, oh God, but I need to know. It was like, okay, like, file that into the little tab of like, at this part, it might be this, it might be this, and so we were all able to sort of like teamwork through it. It was great.
Okay. Unless we have any other comments or
And this
questions.
might have already been answered.
Welcome to the Heights.
This is the last question, but it might have already been answered, but just for you to directly answer it. Zadie, what was your greatest challenge in this piece?
Oh. Huh. I mean, the greatest challenge was to not panic. I mean, and because I lied on my resume. You know, is to expand into doing something that is beyond what my direct training is. My direct training is as a musician, and I have years of experience doing other kinds of performing, but doing something that, you know, is technically outside my realm of training, for sure. That was a big challenge. And honestly, what was really exciting though is allowing it to be so personal. You know, for me, I'm living a much more domestic life than I ever have. I realized the other day I have not stayed home this much since like junior high. You know, it's really been a big change, and there's so many parts of it that are so wonderful, to spend this much time with my family and to have time, but to not have the creative outlets and the adventurous pursuits and the other things that I do. You know, it just really felt like this poem was about me, and in a more specific way than my work often feels. So I don't know if that's really a challenge, but it was a really satisfying part of the process for me.
We're very happy that you lied on your resume. Any other commentaries?
Just my biggest challenge was letting go of the idea of like perfection, because we do a lot of technical repertory work where it is about line and technique and exact timing and exactly together with your ensemble, and just like this really physical dance work that from an aesthetic and physical standpoint we're working toward perfection. Like, no, again, that wasn't perfect. And in this, it was like this ebb and flow, which evolved and just really grew into what it was, instead of having this clear picture that you then refine.
Yeah.
And so letting go of that for me, when so much of our work is about like reaching for that perfection, was a daily struggle.
Well, we are, I guess, wrapping up, and we'd like to thank you on behalf of the Higher Ground Festival and Arts on Air. And please join us again on
And
the...
please consider donating.
Oh, yes, please consider donating.
Do it.
Yeah, our donating page can be found on our website, creatinghigherground.com.
And money. I'm coming in. And also, Arts on Air has set up a money pool, a PayPal money pool that you can donate to, as well as Venmo Arts on Air and Google Pay Arts on Air NYC@gmail.com. All right, so
Do it. Donate.
Please donate, and we'll see you soon.
we'll see you next Wednesday or on Wednesday.
Yes, on Wednesday. So please tune in, and thank you.